Hello world, this is Zan. I'll be doing the national overview for late age Pythium, just because it's been a lot of people have been talking about it lately. Uh, I did a game with them a very long time ago. I don't know if I'll be posting that or not. Um, but regardless, I've played a good bit with this nation, and I have certain views on maybe how it should be played or some of the things that they have. And mainly, I want to dismiss the notion because everyone always jumps on it saying it's one of the worst late age nations, and I don't know. I kind of disagree with that. I don't really have a tier list in my head of what the good or bad nations are, but I have played with this nation, and at no point did I feel weak when fighting the people I fought. The game I played, I know I fought Erythea and a helpless Raga, and I kicked both their butts. And I think it ended as I cast Gift of Nature's Bounty the turn before, or really near the time that there was an Abyssia casting Arcane Nexus. And throughout all of this, I was next to a pond with Late Age Relay, and it just wasn't fun. But none of that was due to the nation itself. It was just due to it being like turn 80 something, and now I have to fight this really big Abyssia. You never want to fight Abyssia in the at that point in the game. So regardless, to actually start with the overview, and this is going to take a while because they do have a lot of moving parts. Uh, to kind of just go through it, it's going to be humans. They're going to Their military is legionaries, which come in both a defensive and offensive or mobile variety. They have these sacred serpent cataphracts that are almost good, but I don't quite think they are. They have gladiators, which is always good to have gladiators. That's a really good rush defense. And they have sacred hydras, which you can try some strategies with those. They're not horrible. I just think they're a little bit too expensive. But I'm sure I personally won't be talking too much about the hydras. But I'm sure and absolutely positive there is a way to use them. Uh, I've just never encountered them used in a way that actually scared me, and I have not tried to use them in a scary way. Mage, they have this is absolutely huge. This description, it is access to weak mages of all paths. So I think it's the only nation in the game that can recruit a mage of every path, which is kind of cool. Usually, yeah, it's weak. It'll be at least an X1 at most in some cases. But even that is enough a lot of the times if you're willing to spend the gems, and it's going to help you site search everything, which can be a doozy in the late age. There's no sites anywhere. And it says here, comma, with stronger mages in nature. It should also say stronger mages in water and fire. Those are your primary paths, nature, water, and fire. And even then, fire can be an optional path. I think the game that I used, I didn't use too much fire because my primary opponent was Raga using, Abyssian troops that were fire resistant. So I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to bring one or two, and they're going to cast fire resistance, and even then, I can get fire resistance through my water paths. So it was iffy, but it's definitely a power of the nation. I wasn't in a position to use it. Uh, they're blessed. Regardless of what bless you take, they will automatically come with poison resistance 10. This is kind of huge because most of your mages, at least the ones you recruit in your forts, they're all sacred. Your non-foreign recruit mages are some basics. Some of them can cast poison resistance, but some of them can't. And that can make things iffy if you're casting foul vapors and, spoilers, you're going to cast foul vapors every single fight. If you don't cast foul vapors, I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, regardless, the bless of the 10 poison resistance, it's never bad. It's never going to go unused because I'm telling you, you're going to use foul vapors in every single fight. Um, on top of that, and this is again spoilers for later, there's going to be a spell that you can cast that also gives 10 poison resistance in combat. It's pretty much poison ward, but it doesn't cost you a gem. And I think it's a little bit smaller of a radius. But that's fine because, again, it doesn't cost you a gem, which is kind of cool. And then there is standard forts for the age, which is fine. And yeah, that'll be that. I'm going to start actually with the units because to me, An overview of this nation that I kind of post this a few times, TLDR, is this is middle-aged status, but you don't have Marshmasters. Or in the sense, the Marshmasters lose the 2 death paths that they had. They become sacred and cap only. Still 2 CP, or commander points, so you can recruit, 1.5 a turn, but they're not recruit anywhere, and they lose those 2 death paths. Otherwise, they have the same water nature paths and the same randoms. So it's middle-aged status, but you lose the Marshmasters, and you gain really good units, recruitable units. You gain, I guess, sacreds that could work with some sort of bless if you're into that. I'm not a fan of them, but I'll talk about that later. You gain access to every single path in the game rather than being forced into whatever Marshmasters have and the Shamans. You lose the Dominion effect that increases your income and diseases non-cold-blooded or non-swamp survival, which can be, good or bad. Obviously, the income part sucks. 10% income is great. But hey, that Dominion effect tends to make it expensive for middle-aged statists to use crosspaths some of the time. So not having it is actually kind of a good thing on a nation that's going to have weak mages of all paths. One huge thing to note, managing your Dominion sucks with this nation, 100%, because your priests suck and you're going to have a lot of heretics running around. So Dominion juggling is relevant, I guess, with this nation, because you have all those heretics, the priests. In the game that I played, and one of the reasons that made it so miserable is I had a very long border with a Dominion 10 relay in the lake, and trying to deal with that was miserable, really. So finally, let's go into the sites, because that'll be quick. In your cap, it's the Serpent Cataphract and Serpent Lord, which we'll get into details later. Temple of the Spheres, which gets you a Therg, which we'll get into later, and 1 Astral Pearl. And then the Sacred Swamp, which is 3 Nature Gems, a Serpent Priest, and the 2 Hydras. So this is one of the reasons that I laugh when people try to play this like an Astral Nation, and it's like, dude, look at your sites. You have 3 Nature and 1 Astral. What part of that makes you think that this is an Astral Nation? Get out of here. All right, finally, troops. All of the red troops are recruit anywhere. Just going to throw that out there. So if they have a red shield as opposed to the green shield, they are recruit anywhere. I know, again, I do have the Vanilla Sprites mod. I like this mod. That's my personal thing on it. So I'm going to use it. In Vanilla, it's the same usage, where red shield is recruit anywhere, green shield is recruit forts only. So on that, we have our first unit, which is the Militae. The Militaes aren't bad. They're absurdly cheap. You can mass them like hell. Their spear attack sucks, but they have pretty decent javelin attack. They come with tower shields, so that automatically puts their defense at a respectable level for an infantry that costs them 8 gold. They have 14 map move, which is okay. 5 encumbrance. It's a militia unit, but better. That's all it is. Now, to your real militia unit, at least the one that I use, you have the Limitani. The Limitani is essentially that same, the Militae, but now he's got a broadsword, which, boosts his attack a little bit. He's got a broadsword. He's got a castle defense bonus, so they count as, 1/1 siege strength and siege defense, which is pretty good. Their map move obviously goes down, their encumbrance goes up because now they're wearing legitimate armor. Like, this is a very good armor kit for a medium infantry. So to me, this is the militia unit. 8 gold, 5 recruitment points. That's pretty darn good. 26 resources, but highly recommend production skills on this nation. Can't imagine why. But yeah, this guy's pretty good. You just gotta watch out for the 9 morale. Same with Militates, they have 8 morale, even less. Moving on, you have the Retiarius and the Gladiators, which are both your anti-rush defense, and maybe even a pretty good expansion. And they cost, like, they have good armor and helmets, and weapons, but they only cost 1 resource. So it's pretty much turn all of your gold and recruitment points into these guys. That can get you an instant army. And they're pretty good. Like, they have good stats. Like, Tridents hit for 22. They also have nets to guarantee those Trident hits. Flails hit twice against whatever, and they have a bonus against shields. So depending on what you're fighting, you can use the Gladiator or Retiarius to kill shit. Kill shit really good. They're really good units. They just the big downside is if they are wounded in combat or if they kill something in combat, they will leave your army even if they survive. So keep that in mind. They are a one-use tactical missile. Moving on, we have the Limitani Primani, and essentially the wording for the nation is going to be that Primani is the elite, and they're just going to be an elite version of whatever the previous thing. So a Limitani is a militia unit. So this is essentially an elite militia unit, for as much sense as that can make. What that's going to actually translate to on the field is that they are very cheap, 10 gold, high resource costs, very cheap recruitment points. That's actually really good. 10 gold for this unit is fantastic because the broadsword and the decent stats make them actually pretty good. So an elite militia turns out to be pretty average overall. They have fair morale, low magic resistance, or I guess basic magic resistance. Their issue is that their combat speed is 6, so they're slow. Their encumbrance is 9, so they are slow. So they get tired. Their mat move is 8, so they are slow. But they do get the castle defense bonus, so it's still 1-1. It's a decent unit overall. You can recruit these over the Limitani. It just depends on what stage of the game you're on and whether that 2 gold makes a difference to you. For me, it kind of did, so I just recruited Limitani. I'm going to skip the green shields and go into the Limitani standards. So this is a Limitani, therefore it's a militia. It's going to cost a lot because it is a standard bearer. However, it will otherwise have the same stats. I think it actually has a defense skill bonus. Limitani, I think, had 14. And it's pretty much just used to give morale to your Limitani. Let's see, it has 8 mat move, or 8 combat speed. 8 combat speed is good, so it's actually going to stay in formation with them, which is huge. It will not stay in formation with the Primani. It will run forward and get killed. So keep that in mind if you try to use these guys. Outside over here, we also will have Limitani Solaris and Primani Solaris. They are recruit non-fort. So Limitani are recruit everywhere, including forts, outside of forts, inside of forts. The Solaris can only recruit it outside of forts, which is rough because they do cost a lot of resources. Now these guys, even this one, Limitani Solaris, is a militia unit, but due to the blessing of the fire god or solar bull that they worship, whatnot, they actually have fairly good stats. Like they're not bad. They have high morale, high defense skill, good attack skill. They hit. I mean, they hit hard because it's a broadsword, but whatever. The problem is they cost 14 gold, 26 resources, and 18 recruitment points, and you can only recruit them outside of forts, so messing them is hard. They're still really good due to them having good stats and very importantly being fire resistant. So in a lot of cases, if you're fighting like Heat 3, for example, this 7 encumbrance stays 7, whereas if you had a regular Limitani, this 7 will become 9 due to the heat. So that's one thing to note on the fire resistance. That's beyond the obvious, like, haha, it eats a fireball and laughs. I get it, fire resistance good, but just another thing to note on the encumbrance part. Now, the Primani Solaris is, again, Primani being elite. It's the elite version of that militia, because at the end of the day, this is still a militia. This is just a militia that has been blessed by their god. It's almost sacred, I guess, just not for LA Pythium. So it's almost sacred in that it's going to have some better stats, and it's going to just be better overall than the previous one, where it has the fire resistance. All the Primani have plate hauberks instead of, what are they called? Plate cuirasses, so they have more body protection. So they're tankier, they move slower, and again, overall, very, very good stats on this guy. Just very expensive, and you cannot recruit them in forts, so they're hard to mass. Okay, so that's the recruit anywhere units. The recruit fort only units will start with the Comitatense. This one personally is my favorite unit for the nation, by far, really, because it is spectacularly above average in everything. Like it's still average, but just slightly better, which is kind of important when you fight other people whose troops are just average. The biggest issue it has is because of the Comitatense, and then this kind of mirrors Byzantine or Western Roman Empire, uh, more Western Roman Empire stuff, in that they're very expensive. So these are the elite units. So they're expensive like an elite, but they still cost the same resource cost as the other guys because it is really the same equipment set. And they do cost more recruitment points. They have 20% more hit points than your average human, which is good. The same protection as the Limitani because of the, it's the same gear set. Better morale, better overall stats. So it's just ever so slightly above average in every category, which is important for defense skill. So this is a 16 defense skill infantryman. That's really good. When you're packing these guys 3 to a square, they're dodging a lot or parrying a lot with their tower shields. That's really good. Their precision is good because that helps them with javelin tossing. Their combat speed is slow-ish, but it could be worse. The highlight of the unit to me is they are mat move 16. This is a medium infantry unit for the age. 14 is no longer heavy infantry. This is a medium infantry unit for the age that has a mat move of 16, which makes your entire nation, if you only use these guys and your whatever mage, all of your mages are mat move 16. So if you only use this guy, it turns the entire nation to mat move 16, as opposed to a lot of mat move 10, 12, or 14 nations. And if you guys have seen my Arcocephaly video, where I talked a lot about mat move in regards to the hoplites, I made so Arcocephaly at the beginning of the game, at least the way I explained it, starts as mat move 10 nation because you're using these super heavy hoplites to move around. And even if your mages are mat move 16 or 14, you have to go at mat move 10 because your hoplites are slow. As the game progresses and you start pumping out Cardices, which are literally leather armored hoplites, now you become mat move 14 at best. And that still sucks. And then on top of that, you're using Cardices as your primary unit, just so you can get that movement. And if you're not using any, if you're going to ignore that and just keep doing the super heavy hoplites, that's totally fine. Just you're going to be moving 1 square per turn. And in a lot of cases, mat move 14 lets you move 2 squares per turn, and mat move 16 will almost guarantee 2 squares per turn, sometimes 3. It's kind of huge, and maybe I overvalue mat move as a player, but I think in a turn-based game where every turn matters, and maybe early in the game it doesn't feel like it does, but late in the game, yeah, every turn matters. Mat move is huge to me. It is very huge to me, and it's something that you cannot easily buff onto your troops. Onto your mages, if they're all sacred, you can do like Windwalker. If you're using only sacred units, you can do Windwalker. If you're not using sacred units, how do you buff mat move? You can't. So keeping that in mind, I highly value mat move 16, and this guy is a bundle of above average stats at a fair price. That is mat move 16. I like that. Moving on to the next one, we have the Palatines, and these are the essentially the elite of the elite, and their price reflects that, being a 20 gold unit for almost the same resource and recruitment cost as the other guys, because they now have the hauberk instead of cuirass, and they lose their javelin. They get 1 extra point of hit points, strength, and attack skill to add to their protection, and their defense skill remains, despite making them beefier, their defense skill remains at 16, which is really darn good. The problem is now their mat move drops down to 14, so they technically would slow your entire army down by 2, and your encumbrance goes up to 9. Now, my issue with these guys, I think this is a fantastic unit if you get them onto the field. I have 2 issues with them. 2 big issues. And their combat speed is it's still 8, despite having the plate hauberk that if you go to the Limitani or Permanis, they're slow. So they're still quote unquote fast, despite being heavy armored. My issues with these guys are twofold, maybe threefold. I guess it would be the primary one is the gold cost. 20 each is a lot. It's 30% more expensive than the other elite unit that you have, the Comitatense, for almost the same offensive capabilities. Obviously, these guys are better. They hit harder, they hit more accurately, but these guys do have javelins, and I really like javelins. Especially on nations that have access to air and fire. And I have access to all paths, so I have access to air and fire. So that's the first problem, is they're really expensive, 30% more than your other elite unit. So when if you try to mass these guys, it's kind of rough. The map move comes down to 14, which is, I mean, that's the average for all other nations. So when they're running around with Cardaces, you're running around with this super heavy plate armored dude. And you kind of start seeing where that map move might matter. In that case, your opponents are trying to sprint by with light armored leather units, and you have plate armor. And the other one is their encumbrance is 9, and if there's an extreme temperature, heat or cold, it's going to go up to 11. They don't have that javelin toss for some free damage before they start encumbering, so that can be pretty bad. Otherwise, it's great. It's expensive. It's expensive. And again, you do have a Comitatense standard, which is again the basic unit. Obviously now he's more expensive than the Limitani version, but he does come at map move 16. So I've heard of people saying, oh, I'll just recruit the Limitani standard and use that instead. Map move 10. Map move 10. So it'll slow your entire army down if you mix red and green. Do not mix red and green. The only time you mix red and green is when you do the actual, intended use of Limitani, which is they're sitting in your fort, praying that somebody shows up, using their siege defense bonus, praying that someone shows up to save them, and the people that's going to save them is the roving army of your elite Comitatense. So this guy runs around and fights. These guys stay in forts and pray that someone comes to save them. That's almost sort of how it worked with the Western Romans and such. It can be argued on how effective it actually was, but I think that is the intention of Illwinter when designing these units. In practice, what it turns out is if I have a fort somewhere really far away, maybe I'll recruit some Limitani to just stand in there and look scary. But in reality, I'm just going to recruit Comitatense because they go everywhere and they fight well. Moving on. So you get Hydra Hatchlings, which you can recruit in your capital, up to your sacred limit, whatever. You can also temple recruit these with your mages. But do you really want your mage to be temple recruiting these guys? And they cost money, and the temple recruit ones cost money too. I don't know. I don't know. If you have some big bless, okay, that makes every temple, another sacred you can recruit. But really, these are just balls of poison cloud that you send at people. But at least the way I would think of using them is, I didn't use them. The way I would think of using them is these are balls of poison clouds that you send at people. But once you start casting Foul Vapors, does that really matter? And you're going to rush Foul Vapors because you're pretending to be a middle-aged statist, and it's usually what you do. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about these guys. I don't know how I feel about them. I didn't use them. I can see people using them because you can temple train them, so you ignore the 35 recruitment cost, and you just pay the 14 upkeep. So I can see that. And, with some sort of bless, maybe they do things. It's just the cost of recruiting them is having one of your mages temple train, and that's kind of awkward. So I don't know. Moving on, we have the Serpent Cataphract, which green shield moves fast, except Lizard. Lizard's slow. Lizard kind of moves slow, which sucks. These almost would be good. They're going to be poison resistant to Foul Vapors completely because they start with 5. Your Bless automatically has 10. 10 is enough to ignore 99.9% of Foul Vapors. With 15, you never have to worry about Foul Vapors hurting you, ever. So these are completely immune to it. And if you put your finger over the gold cost and ignore it, this is pretty good. It's just, is it really? 65 gold cost, that's as much as a van, and this is not a van. This can get close to a van if you have some sort of protection buff you want to add to it, but this is ultimately not a van. It hits harder. It has a better quote-unquote hoof attack. This poison and bite that can actually repel length 1 stuff, and has debilitating poison, which kind of sucks, but it's there. Makes subsequent attacks and bites more likely to hit if they don't have poison resistance. But it's rough. It's kind of rough. The best thing it has is that it's heavily armored for encumbrance. It's just lightly armed, and it costs an arm and a leg. Is it a good unit? Yes. Is it expensive? Hell yeah. Would I recruit it? Probably not. Do I want 1 Serpent Cataphract, or do I want 4 Comitatense? I don't know. think I'll go for these guys. Next we have the Hydra. So this one you can't temple drain. This is recruit only. You get 1 per turn, 210 gold each, but it's sacred, so you know upkeep's not horrible. So I'm this I can see people using. I can see people using this with a proper bless to hopefully keep it alive ever so slightly longer if you use it in tandem with your infantry. And that becomes difficult. Because what you, or at least what I would want this unit for, is not to tank. And it inevitably will try to tank because it is undisciplined. But I don't want this unit to tank despite its high hit points. I want this, I want the lines to clash. And then this guy shows up. Maybe filling in spots, which is hard because it's size 6, or going around the flanks. And what I want to do that for, I mean, heck, even if this stood in line with the units, that'd be good. So maybe parts of the line is held by a Hydra instead of 3 infantrymen. That would be good too. Because what I want it to do is I want it to be this Poison Cloud. This Poison Cloud 8 is huge. I want it to be this giant Poison Cloud, and I want to add this Fear Aura. And I want both of those to mix to hurt things and then, more importantly, scare them away. Fear is very powerful. Fear is very powerful. It might not be, you know, 10 death on your Pretender for less powerful, but Fear is pretty strong. And then although it has little to no protection, you know, with 10 regen, it's kind of solid. Just be aware, fire damage is going to do a lot. So it's good. It just falls again into it's really expensive, and the job that it has to do, half of it gets covered by Foul Vapors, which are going to cast every single fight anyways. And then the poison on their bites also isn't very strong, but there are a lot of bites. It is going to harass down whatever is in front of it, and it offensively is significantly better than any of your units or anything else you have in your roster. It is just, again, it's very expensive and is limited recruitment. But I definitely can see people using this. Because you look at it and you're like, oh no, it's an animal, but it actually has really high magic resistance and high morale and acceptable stats. Just be very careful on how you use this thing. And if you choose to ignore it, that's totally fine too. I think I used a handful of them. It is a good unit. Just be careful. All right, we're finally done with the units at 30 minutes in. Oh boy. Let me pause it real quick, take a quick breather, and then I'll be back. Alrighty, guys, back from the quick break, and we'll go through now their commanders, which is somehow even longer than their already long list of units. To start, I mean, basic scout, who cares? Going into the first one, we're going to have a recruit anywhere, sacred, serpent assassin. It costs 2 CP, has mat move 16, 75 gold. It actually does more than just assassinate, but we'll get there. To start, it's poison resistant, so you can hang out in your armies with Foul Vapors. It's going to be super stealthy, 60 versus 40. It has a patrol bonus of 25. So it's going to do 28 patrol strength each at 75 gold with sacred upkeep. For reference, a good patrol unit is a militia. They cost 8 gold for, I think it's just 1 patrol strength. So 10 militia will get you 10 patrol strength. At 80 gold, this guy's giving you at 75 gold, 28 patrol strength. So they are damn good at patrolling. Off the top of my head, probably one of the best patrolling commanders in the game. Now, it does cost you 2 CP, and you do have to get it from a fort, so you're sacrificing a mage turn. But they are still pretty damn good, and when they aren't patrolling, or rather said, when they're not assassinating, they can be patrolling, and they patrol very well. Now, when they are assassinating, they come with a built-in Serpent Cris. This is already armor piercing with a death poison. If this lands a hit or 2, I guarantee whatever's on the other end will likely die, even if it is undead. 35 death poison's enough to get through the 25 of the undead. And, you know, they hit pretty frequently because they have elite stats. The 13s across the board, the Serpent Cris giving an extra 2 attack and 1 defense. So if they get in melee range, they will do well. without a bless or anything, just as is. Now, obviously, they're going to struggle with mages summoning elementals or bodyguards, or any of that, and you might have to add your own equipment to that list, be it water bottles or vinemen or even the little long dead talisman. You have access to all of those. But in straight up, if this guy gets in melee range and scratches the person, it's likely going to kill them. And very importantly, they can scale walls. So not only can they assassinate, but they can assassinate while you are sieging a castle, and that is huge. That is a very big difference between assassins that cannot do this and the assassins that can do this. So keep that in mind. These are recruit anywhere assassins that will kill whatever they damage, and they will often damage things with their high attack skill and death poison and armor piercing. I don't know really good gear sets. I feel like you want to use these in mass, but then recruiting them in mass is also hard because it takes up your forts. They are pretty good. Using them is difficult, but when you have them out, they are good. If you start blood hunting, you could just patrol with a handful of these guys, and that'll solve all your problems. Just be careful relying on these guys while you patrol the blood hunt, because if you catch, actual sneaking enemies, they're not going to do that well when they start fighting armies. So keep that in mind. Be careful what you find. Commander-wise, this is kind of important. You get a Centurion that is recruit anywhere. So outside of your capital, you can actually, or outside of your forts, you can recruit really damn good commanders. 70 gold. It's expensive, but it does come with 80 leadership, formations, and +1 morale. They are map move 18, despite, having actual armor. They don't have shields. And I find that they tend to catch crossbow bolts very, very, very often. So do keep that in mind. But otherwise, foreign recruit super commander like this is fantastic. Super, super good. Meanwhile, you in your capital, which is mainly the time you're going to recruit these, or you might want to get Tribuni during like expansion times, just because they do have a shield. Like foreign recruit Centurions are great and all, but during expansion, you don't want to lose an army because your Centurion caught a crossbow to the face on the second turn. So for at least for expanding, you might want to do a Tribuni. You have a Citadel at home, so you can, mage plus Tribuni. It is going to cost a lot of resources, which sucks, but it's going to be hella well armored and still map move 16, which is nuts. And again, it's going to have leadership 80, but it's also going to have inspirational. So it's going to be a morale +2 to the 3 squads that are going to have all formation. And then in combat itself, its stats are actually really damn good. Like you can thug these guys almost based on these stats. Although most of it is, again, the tower shields, but 13 attack and defense tends to be, quote unquote, elite. And again, high protection, high hit points, like very, very good commander. Just, he's not foreign recruit. So you're going to have a crap ton of Centurions, but early on, when it really matters, I do recommend a Tribuni just to catch crossbow bolts. Moving on, we drop the shield again, go to an old Magister Militum, which is pretty much everything that the Strategos of Arccephaly wanted to be, where it is old age, but it still actually has map move 16. We're going to have the same leadership value as the Tribuni, but now we're going to have 4 squads instead of 3 and 120 instead of 80, right? Yeah. Also pretty good. Also ridiculously expensive. Slightly less resources, but now it's 2 recruitment points. You might not see these. At least for me, I think I leaned a little bit on the Tribuni and the Centurions a lot. We also have Battle Deacons. These guys are kind of cool in that they're actual like priests. They can lead troops. So these guys are nifty in that they can lead troops and be a priest. So if you do like Sacred Expansion, these guys can do it. They come with their poison resistance built in. And then the blessing will also give them another 10. So they'll be at 15. So these guys can lead Hydras, they can lead whatever and still be poison resistant. Other than that, there's literally nothing to talk about. This is an armored priest, essentially. Moving forward, though, this is the issue the Battle Deacon's going to run into. For 5 gold more, you recruit this guy, who loses all of his armor. But for 5 gold more is now an actual nature mage. And you might think, okay, nature 1, holy 1 is a piece of garbage, these suck. No, you want these. You want these because Pythium gets a spell that requires nature 1, holy 1 to cast. That is going to be essentially poison ward, but does not cost gems. And you're going to foul vapors a lot. as this nation. Every single fight, you need to be casting Foul Vapors, and if you're not, I don't know what you're doing. I've never built so much cornucopias as I did when I was playing this nation, because all you do is cast Foul Vapors. And you have these little idiots cast Poison Ward on your units, and all of a sudden, you're not dying to your own Foul Vapors, despite having better troops than Satis, for example, would have. So they're pretty good. They're good research monkey. 70 gold for 7 research points is on point. They are sacred. They can temple train the small hydras, the hatchlings, not the big boys. So it's up to you if you want to create one of these guys every fort just to temple train. I think they do come out cheaper to the Statisian High Priests, the 80 gold guys that temple train for Middle Age Satis, and I see people use them. So technically it's a better deal, but he could also be researching. It's iffy. At worst, he casts Swarm. Pretty good. Pretty decent. It's going to be your likely a primary researcher and can also poison ward your units until obviously you hit enchantment 7 and you just can't Serpent Blessing and go on your merry way. Now you go to the Renata and the Renatus, and these are both very similar. I mean, at first sight, they're identical. Water 1, Death 1, Sacred, but not Holy 1. Now, the Renatus has the randoms of an Astral, Death, or Nature. So this guy can be a Water 1, Death 1, Astral, which is never bad. You can commune and do things. He can be a Water 1, Death 2, which is good. He can Skelly spam, and he can also cast Stygian Skin, I think, to not die immediately to every crossbow. He'll probably still die, but it won't be as bad as if he had, just one protection. But a Death 2 is good. It's an expensive Death 2, but it's a Death 2. That is good. And the other random he can have is a Nature random, which means you now have Water Nature crosspath, which means Moss Body. Moss Body good. The Renata, on the other hand, loses the Death 2 option, but gains a Water 2 option, and that can be useful for various things. Quickness is not something I'd really recommend on this nation, but Water 2s can do it. Water 1s can do it, really, but Water 2s can do it better. They can cast your resistances. They can summon Water Elementals. Everyone can Frozen Heart, so who cares about that? Wave Warriors is another good spell. You need some amount of Water 2s in this nation, so Renatas aren't completely wasted. But for the most part, I think I lean into Renatus when I'm recruiting big mages or battle mages out of forts, because I do appreciate having the Death 2 option. And actually, I'm going to skip these two and just go straight to the Serpent Priest on kind of the reasoning for everything else I've been saying. These are your big cap-only dudes, right? But they're only 2 recruitment points instead of 4, so they're not slow to recruit. 265 gold, which sucks, especially if you're recruiting 1.5 turn. But otherwise, map move 16, so they keep pace with the army. High magic resistance, high morale. Protection sucks, but you can deal with that with your paths. And they can lead troops. Go. They can also temple train, but do you really want to temple train at 265? Oh crap. This is important. Everything I've said about temple training is wrong. You need a temple with a swamp to get the hatchlings. So it can't be anywhere. It has to be temple with swamp. Something to keep in mind. Completely forgot about. Again, I didn't use hatchlings really. I didn't want to spend a mage turn making a hatchling. Especially not these guys. But regardless of that, they're always going to be immune to Foul Vapors, whether you bless them or not, whether they cast Poison Resistance or not. They're always immune to it because of Poison Resistance 15. They have the same paths as a middle-aged Satis Marshmaster if you remove the Death 2. So keep that in mind. So they're going to be Water 1, Nature 2, Holy 2. You traded Death 2 for Holy 2. Kind of sucks. Water 1, Death 2, or Water 1, Nature 2, Holy 2. And then these are the same randoms that the Marshmasters get. So you can end up with Water 2, Nature 2, Holy 2s, which are good. Do Water Magic. Water Magic is better than people give credit for when it's high enough level like that. You don't want them to really doing Moss Body. They can. There's better stuff for them to doing. They have the Astral part, which again, Astral, you can Communion, you can do things with that. You generally don't need a Communion in this nation until way later in the game, but hey, it's a thing you can do. Death 1, arguably, And ironic because death is such a good path. Ironically, I think the death 1 is probably the weakest of their randoms, and then nature 3. The nature 3 ones are the ones you really want to take care of because those are going to be your big nature casters as the game progresses. Uh, so it is nature 3 is a very good path to have in your armies, and if you recruit a lot of these, you will have many of them available. You can also get lucky and get a nature 4, which is hilarious, but yeah. I think the death random's the weakest, but all the other randoms have really good things that they could be doing, especially because I get, yeah, whatever, it's a cap-only mage, who cares? It is not slow to recruit, so you will have a lot of them. And even then, there aren't a lot of cases where you really want a lot of nature mages over other things. At least the way I've used nature mages, that could be wrong. You kind of do their big buffs, and then that's it. I mean, they can sleep cloud, poison cloud, I'm not saying foul vapors, it's battlefield enchantment. So like they can do the clouds, and they can do swarm and creeping doom for sure. But you don't want to be doing swarm. At least me, I don't want to be doing swarm and creeping doom because each time I use it's going to be a gem. So it's not a super long-term strategy, I guess, as opposed to being able to cast Wooden Warriors, Mass Protection, Mass Regeneration. They can't do Gaia's Blessing because they don't have Earth, but Serpent's Blessing, Foul Vapors, they can do almost every single battlefield enchantment that relies on nature. The only one they can't do is Gaia's Blessing. Relief is difficult, but I think they can do it with a Thistle Mace. So they're the reasons why I favor the Renatus, because the Serpent Priest, I will have a lot of Serpent Priests, meaning I will have a lot of Water 2s, which is what the Renata does, but I won't have any Death 2s, which is what I need the Renatus to do. And I won't cry if I get a Renatus that is an Astral Mage, because I can Communion, and I won't cry if I get one that is a Nature Mage, because now he's going to be casting Moss Body. Pretty good. You combine Moss Body with like Wave Warriors and Mass Protection on your Comitatense, they are not going to die. It will be very difficult for them to die. Moving back then to our other units, we have a Serpent Lord, which is just a commander version of the what are these guys? The Serpent Cataphracts. And again, very good stats, but cost a crap ton of gold. He's not even a priest, so he can't even bless himself or his friends. So I would never recruit this. Like maybe to meme in an arena or something, I would, but I no, don't recruit this guy. And then the other one you have in your cap only, your other cap only mage is your Theurg. It is kind of funny because when I see people talking about late age Pythium, I see everyone saying, okay, you want to recruit a million Theurgs. And I kind of look at them. Why do you want to recruit a million of these guys? Why? They keep up pace with your army, good. They have no protection, bad. They have no poison resistance, semi-okay because it's going to come to your blast because they're sacred. They're guaranteed Astral Holy, which is good if you need to cast Divine Blessing or whatever. But a third of them, to me, a third of them are useless. The Astral Water is 100% useless. That now turns into a research mage for me at a not good trade. Because there's nothing I need Astral Water to do that I won't already have when I'm recruiting Renatus. Renati. I don't know. I don't know what they would be used or what the terminology there. So a third of them are complete crap. Straight up crap. So if I recruit 10 of these, 3 of them are going to be complete crap. Knowing my luck, 4 of them will be complete crap. Now, the other 2, these are actually useful. You 100% do need Astral 2s so that you can turn 1 anti-magic. 100% you need some Astral 2s. That's... You can't argue that. You need them. And you need some that have air, because you need to be able to cast Arrow Fend when people shoot at you with crossbows, and you need to be eventually able to cast Fog Warriors when you get the chance, because Fog Warriors is really damn good. Add that to your buff Comitatense list. So right now they're sitting on, Wooden Warriors, Moss Body, Wave Warriors, and Fog Warriors. And then, of course, if we're going to talk about Fog Warriors, and you have access to Astral, Will of the Fates. So when you start needing to cast Will of the Fates and Fog Warriors, Now is when you need to start using communions. But again, you don't need a million of these. You just need a handful of these. Because, that's what these randoms, the astral randoms of these guys are going to be doing. They're going to be fodder for these idiots. But you don't need 1,000 of them because then you have 1,000 shitty mages. Or if you don't have 1,000 shitty mages, you're forced to get that 1,000 mages you have and communion 2/3 of them just to get something good, just to get a good mage. So I favor the Serpent Priest for a lot of the game at maybe have 2 Serpent Priests for every Theurg, I would say, maybe. You can even just set as like recruit Serpent Priest Theurg the entire game, and that's probably fine too. That's a 1-to-1. But yeah, don't exclusively recruit these. Like I've seen people mention that. Don't exclusively recruit Theurgs, because then you're going to be in trouble, because you're now going to be forced to communion a crap ton of your mages to get anything done. Whereas Serpent Priests do things on their own. They don't need help to be useful. Theurgs need help to be useful. They are extremely useful late in the game when you need to do Aerofen, Fog Warriors, Will of the Fates. Before then, I can't justify using these guys en masse, because that means I have to bring a huge ass communion for them to cast Soul Slay. No, never do that. Okay, so that's what you can recruit in your forts. Outside of your forts, and this is another huge discussion. Outside of your forts, you have a bunch of other mages. Now, I'll just go straight out and say, this guy here, this Leo, to me, this guy's hot garbage. Never recruit a Leo. I can't justify a single moment where I might want to recruit a Leo. This is hot garbage. Ignore this. I guess, actually no, hold on. Here's where you can maybe justify recruiting them. You can recruit 1 per turn. Every lab you have can recruit 1 per turn, not in a fort. CP1. I guess so can the Misties, right? Yeah. I guess that's what you could do with the Leo. Recruit 1 per turn. But why? They suck. Don't do that. Okay, now that we're done with the Leo, and you're not going to ever recruit them, we're going to go to your actual mages, starting with the most important one, which is the Heliodromus. This guy is a quote-unquote slow to recruit because, again, he's 2 commander points, and he can only be recruited outside of your forts. So every 2 turns, you will get 1 of them. However, he is a 90 gold Fire 1 that is either a Fire 2 or a Fire 1 Nature 1, which is also like, hold on me. I know Fire 1 Nature 1 sounds like crap. Give me a second. I'll get there. He has very good morale, which is important in the age of everyone and their mother has Wailing Winds. And again, 90 gold, either Fire 2 or Fire 1 Nature 1. Now, there is a spell. There's a ritual that they can cast. I think it's like, it's expensive, but it requires Fire 1 Nature 1, and it gives them, for some temporary amount of time, it makes them a Fire 3 Nature 2. That can do a lot of crap. Fire 3 Nature 2 can do a lot of crap. Now, it bumps up their Heretic to 5. So it's going to, I believe, 5 guarantees, guarantees removing 1 point of Dominion every turn. So that sucks. But a Fire 3 Nature 2 for 90 gold, a 5-path mage for 90 gold is insane. Even before that happens, a Fire 2 mage for 90 gold, to me, is really damn good. That is really damn good. Yeah, he can't communion or anything. He's going to sit there casting Fireball or whatever, but that is really damn good because once you get Fireball out of your head, you're going to realize he can Phoenix Power and cast Incinerate. And somebody sitting there casting Incinerate for 90 gold is really good. He can drop Fire Elementals, Flaming Arrows, Elemental Resistances, Fire Water Resistance, or Fire Cold Resistance. Yeah, these are really, really good for 90 gold. And again, I keep stressing that. It's very, very good for 90 gold. The next one, and this is the one I see everyone focus on, it's kind of weird, is this 40 gold, research for 5, you get 1 per turn. I'm okay with these. I don't think they deserve the focus and praise that they get. I really don't think so. You shouldn't bend your back over, break your back trying to recruit these girls just because they cost 40 gold to get you 5 research. But they are good. They are good. Occasionally one randoms Earth 1, and that's kind of good. Or Nature 2, which, now you can make them do things that you don't want your Serpent Priest doing. 40 gold 2-path mage would be good. So they are really good. Just, I didn't use them. There's a lot of opportunity cost when you recruit Misties. So I didn't use them, because when you're recruiting a Misty, you're not recruiting a Heliodromai, and you're not recruiting a Reveler. And you might look at the Reveler and say, Sam, this is worse than a Misty in every possible way. And you're almost right. These guys suck. I hate them. I hate them so much because they're all heretics, and it's even like a good heretic value. Heretic 3. They're all heretics. And they call it unrest. That's really bad. And they research for less than the Misties do. Research at 3 each for 50 gold. They're more expensive. So why would I recruit these? Because they can random blood. Not 10% of the time, 20% of the time. Or, well, 10% of the time overall, because obviously it's 20% that you're going to roll in this table in the first place, and then you get one or the other. So 10%, so for every 10, you get 1 blood mage, in theory. And that's huge. That is huge for this nation because of a national spell you get called Orgy. And I can go over that later. But for now, I guess take my word on it that spell can be very useful for this nation. Because you have the mages that you need due to your wide path access to actually make use of it. Now, the other half on why these guys are useful is the advantage of this damnation in the first place is you have weak mages of all paths. If you do not recruit the Revelers because you want to recruit Misties instead, you lose out on all of your blood access. Your crappy, terrible, tiny amount of blood access is all gone if you don't recruit these guys. So yes, are Misties better researchers than Revelers? 100%. Are Misties a better mage than Revelers? 100%. If you choose to go and recruit exclusively Misties, you will lose access to blood. And I don't know. If in a vacuum you said, hey, I don't want blood access on a nation that has it, everyone's going to look at you funny and think you're crazy because blood is extremely powerful. So for me, I chose to recruit Revelers because at the end of the day, I take Magic 3 on this nation. It's one of the few nations I really, really want to push for Magic 3 because I am going to, as I play this, I will recruit a lot of Revelers, and Magic 3 literally makes that 50 gold for 6 RP, as opposed to 40 gold for 8 RP. Both cases it almost doubles it, but I want the chance of using blood magic. Now, the other problem people bring up. Oh no, Zan. They cause unrest. Oh no, they're heretics. I don't care. They are nature mages, so they provide their own food. However you want to justify that makes sense. But you grab all of your revelers and you stick them in a wasteland. And the wasteland, I mean, for me, I called it Party Jungle because it was a forest province in my game that had like 2,000 population, and I was like, okay, sure. I'm gonna send all my revelers in there, and the unrest went up to like 440, which I found out is the cap. Your unrest cannot go past 440. Kind of food for thought. So I just sent them all into that province with 2,000 population, making me no money anyways, and set them to research. And you might even say, okay, well, now that you built a lab and you're not recruiting things out of it, yeah, half the time my dumbass doesn't plan ahead, and I build a fortless lab in between 2 forts, and the 2 forts kill all the resources in that province anyways, and now I can't recruit out of the lab regardless of the upkeep because there's no resources in it because my 2 forts are stealing all the resources. So you will easily find a province in your land that is worth nothing. And that suddenly, to me, will become Party Jungle, and I'm going to stick all my Revelers in it. I'm going to give half of them 1 nature gem, so if someone does attack it, they're going to cast Swarm and kill that person. Problem solved. In the meantime, you are filtering for blood mages, and your blood mages have important things to do when it comes to blood hunting. And I'll get to that soonish. Just this is your access to blood. And again, Misties are better researchers than Revelers, 100%. But I would rather recruit Revelers because now I have the option, I have the access, I have the versatility of having blood mages, whereas I lose all of that versatility for Misties. We're going to ignore the Leo because you're never going to recruit them. The next one we have is the Apoptes. These are also, unfortunately, really important for your nation. What sucks is that they're slow to recruit as well, and half of them are useless. I mean, maybe not useless, because at the end of the day, they're disease healers for a nation that doesn't have any old men. Maybe some of the Fae are old, but for the most part, none of your dudes are old. The few that are, the few good Apoptes will fix it. And the reason that these chicks are important is they're your only, or they are one of two ways that you have access to Earth 1 at best. And that sucks, because you really want Earth. You really want to cast Legions of Steel on your Comitatense. You really want to cast Strength of Giants on them. You really want those. You damn right need them. So you are forced, I will say you are forced to recruit Apoptes until you have some other method of getting Earth magic, because somebody needs to be casting Legions of Steel and Strength of Giants on your Comitatense. If you have good units, you buff your good units so that they beat up other people's crappy units. That's how I play the game. That's how I recommend at least this nation be played. I always say this, I might be wrong. Please add in the comments all the ways that I'm wrong and I'm talking crap. But for me, this is what I did in my game that worked. Now, I was really fortunate as I started, wrapping my head around that I was going to have to recruit this crappy mage, 110 gold, Earth 1. I found a province in my cap circle with witches, and I immediately forwarded it and recruited witches instead, which I think are 110 gold, nature 1, Earth 1 anyways, and disease heal. It's literally this mage, just sacred and not heretical. And I recruited witches the entire game because I need Earth magic. And okay, so we're done with the roster. I'm going to take another break because this is a really long video because this is a complicated nation. And then I will talk about their summons and the heroes that they get, I guess, and some of their wonky, interesting spells. All right, guys, back for the last part of this video where I talk about the wonky spells, some heroes, and all the fun stuff. So I guess just to do heroes and get them out of the way, your first hero is the Pontifex Serpentis, which is just a fancy way of saying, hey, here's a Holy Three. Congratulations. These are the same paths or I guess he has an extra random. These are pretty much the same paths your Serpent Priests. From the capital can do, this one just happens to be Holy Three. Whoop-de-dee. And a really good troop leader. That's about it. Nothing fancy. Uchumumu. This guy's actually quite useful if you get him. You don't want to fight with him because his morale sucks. Like, yeah, it's 9 because he's in the capital with all these bonuses, but really his base morale is 7. So if he tries to fight in enemy territory, his base morale is 6. I would not fight with this guy. I would use him. His best use would be craft flaming skulls when they come around. At least for me, I think that's what his best use would be. Otherwise, anything you can think of with these paths is pretty good. Just be very careful using him in combat due to that very low morale. He might rout at the sight of anything and get himself killed or whatever the heck with his very low hit points. Despite being a statistician, his map move is able to keep up with the big army. But I think the biggest thing you want this guy to be able to do is craft you that the Skull of Fire. That having this guy craft you, by the way, having this guy craft you the Skull of Fire gets you all the way up to Fire 5. Because your Heliodrome, with that one spell, become Fire 3, give them a Skull of Fire, they are Fire 4. Craft a Flame Helmet, they are Fire 5. Summon any of the big fire dudes, and congratulations, you have all the fire you could ever hope for. Yeah, that's pretty much this guy. That's his job. His job is get you high fire. You get the Master of the Games. He does not come with this champion helmet, promise, but he is forced to enter every arena. And it sucks that he got all of this experience to give him these. Oh my god, he got quickness. Oh no, he got attack skill. This gave him quickness. Okay, it sucks that he got all his free stats, but his base stats are 15, 15, which if you remember earlier I mentioned 13, 13. It tends to be an elite unit. This guy at 15, 15 base is insane. Right now, I mean, even just as he is right now, he is a complete monster. You can equip 3 miscellaneous items on top of his normal stuff, and you generally don't want to remove his weapons because these hero blades hit 3 times versus larger beings and have really good stats. And he dual wields them, so he's going to get 4 attack and 6 defense from the swords. And he's ambidextrous, so it's not a problem. 3 times versus larger is very powerful, by the way, because it's before protection is taken into account. So if I swing for 24, it's actually going to swing for what is that, 72? And 72 versus your like 20 protection. Yeah, that's gonna suck. On top of that, he gets these skills of the gladiator, which are armor negating. They do still roll the damage dice. Keep that in mind. But they're armor negating. This one on damage, no resistance, is going to cause eye loss. So pocket sand. Straight up pocket sand. It's going to do armor negating damage and cut your eyes out. The other one is, again, the same damage, but now you get a magic resistance check on whether he just kills you. Just outright, you failed your MR check, you die. And it's always going to do damage if it hits, because it's armor negating. So fighting this guy, especially if he gets the stupid helmet giving him quickness, this will kill almost anything. Especially, the only things that could stand up to this really are going to be like size 2 things that aren't going to get one shot. And even then, size 2 things tend to not like these 24 damage swings or these armor negating hits. So this guy is a monster. And he also comes out with the 2 gladiators whenever he competes in the arena. So really, he's going to die to Skelly spam or water elementals. But if it's a fair arena where people are just fighting each other, this guy's a monster. Obviously, you want to fill out the rest of the slots. Just don't touch his weapons. He also has 20 hit points for size 2, so he has twice the hit points of a regular human. Yeah, this guy is a monster. That's I think you got another hero or maybe 2 heroes that like lead units around, and that's cool. But recruit anywhere centurions. Leading units is not an issue. So we'll get into your spells now. You get a spell later on to summon this chick, Hydra, Daughter of Typhon, which is just a super Hydra. Each head is 2 attacks. It is immortal. It is sacred. It's pretty cool. Just one thing is that it's very expensive. It's at Conjuration 9, and this does not start out as a commander. I made it a commander because I wanted to test if it dies a commander, will it be reborn a commander? And the answer is yes. But otherwise, it's unlikely you will ever see this, just because, again, it comes as a unit, it's expensive, and it's at Conjuration 9. Yeah, it's rough. The other one you get is Cestius the Lar, or I guess any Lar there. You can summon many of these. These are really good. These are super damn good. For normal Ermors, this is your way to Foul Vapors people. For Pythium, this is your way to get Earth Magic on a very expensive mage. I think it's like 16 nature gems. Any nature one can do it. That's like 16 nature gems to get one of these guys. And you're paying 16 nature gems to get an Earth 1 mage, because that's the only thing you're going to have this guy do. Now, later in the game, he becomes more important because he will cast Gaia's Blessing. You first cast something in here, Strength of Gaia, to bump up his nature magic. You give him a Thistle Mace or whatever. Have him cast Strength of Gaia to bump up his Earth magic, and then later on you cast Gaia's Blessing to get yourself all the resistances. That is his purpose. Before that, he is just an emergency, I need an Earth Mage, because you're Nature 2 Water 1, all of your Serpent Priests are Nature 2 Water 1. Technically, you can thug with this guy. I don't know if you want to be thugging with them, but you technically can. They are ethereal, they are sacred, and they will recuperate their wounds. They got fair stats, but it's just size 3, 14 hit points. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but hey, I won't stop you. I won't stop you. But Lars are really good. They're just expensive because you use nature gems like Calum uses air gems as a late Python, between casting all your nature spells, crafting cornucopias if you're into that. I'm into that. Cornucopias, for reference, are 2 temporary nature gems for 15 gems. If you have a hammer, it's 2 for 13, so in 6 or 7 battles, you will recoup your cost, and you can't be gem baited. You're going to use nature gems every battle, so I do tend to have at least one cornucopia in every army because at least I will be casting Foul Vapors. And Foul Vapors cannot, I can't like suicide into Foul Vapors because I have Gift of the Sacred Swamp cast by your basic Serpent Priests. It costs no gems, so if you tell them to cast this, they will always cast this, which is pretty good. And I guess while on the subject here, we can talk about Epoptea in Apoptes. The Earth 1 random heretical mage can cast this and increase your growth until next spring. So if you cast it in spring, it will be 12 turns, so 1 HGM per turn. However, it does reduce your minion by 3. The most important thing you get out of this, because it's you will get Tom killed if you cast this in all your castles. It is an option if you want to not go to growth 3. It is an option, but you will get Tom killed, and you can't be spending your nature gems to get growth. Like you're in the late age, you can't do that. But the most important thing it does is reduce the minion by 3 when the ritual is cast. So let's say you take a fort from some dirtbag that has like vengeful waters, dark skies, and all that, and now you're trying to preach it down. You can just cast this by an Apoptes, and it's an auto reduction by 3. On top of the fact that you have a bunch of heretics lowering the minion anyways. But in a pinch, it can just flat out reduce the minion. Hamadryads, we talked about this when I was with Archocephaly. I think they're kind of garbage. 25 nature gems for a nature 3 mage that you have a bunch of. Now it starts with some harpies, which can be useful at disrupting stuff at the beginning. It's got a lot of hit points. It's a good province defender. It's just, do you really have 25 nature gems to be summoning this in a forest? Probably not. So it's good, it can do things, it's just, I don't know. Would you really summon that? Um, anyways, what else we have? Okay, Conjuration, Contact Lar, we talked about. Pride of Lions gets you these lions, which I'm not a fan of. I think they're pretty bad. If I was going to spend nature gems on chaff that early in the game, I think I'd rather do, where are they? Leogryphs? I think Leogryphs are pretty good. You get about the same amount, but they're stronger. They're better than lions, and they're actually magic resistance. They have like 14 magic resistance or something. So if I really need to make something, probably lions, or probably Leogryphs, or maybe bog beasts. You can do bog beasts. They're pretty good. Kithbionic lions, harder, a little harder. But yeah, vine ogres are great if you have a little hat. There's Daughter of Typhon. Just very difficult overall to cast, because if you're trying to do it with the Serpent Priest, you can't hold a Thistle Mace and a Skull Staff at the same time. Okay, maybe you can get a Pretender to do it, and they can also get you Lamias, and Lamia's more blood stuff. Let me see what else is there in Conjuration. I'll just go to the Inspector real quick on my screen. I don't know how to put it for your guys' screen. Sorry. And I'll get the... Okay, so most of them are Conjuration Enchantment. Okay, we've already done the Nature Enchantment one, but there is one here in Enchantment. Catabasis, who knows? This is essentially 8 Death Gems for Twiceborn. You cast it by Renata or Renatus, and it's going to Twiceborn them, 20% discount. And when they come back, they will not be in White Mage form. They actually retain their same form. So you can cast this over and over and over again. You get your dude, and you empower him in something because whatever, you wanted to cast Wailing Winds, so you give a Death 2/1 an air empower. And he goes out, you cast this, he goes out, he dies, he comes back as his same shape, so you cast it again, and then he goes out and dies again, and so on. Obviously, you don't want him to be dying that much, but it is a way to protect your investment should you empower one of these idiots, or should, I don't know, you have something, this is what you want to do with your Death Gems. I didn't use it too much. Some of your Serpent Priests? No, they can't. Only Renatus. So, yeah. I was going to say the Serpent Priests, some of them have the paths, but nope, it's just these guys. Yeah, it's the main point I would use it in is if I fire empower 1 to get the Skull Flame, the fire booster, or I air empower 1 to get Wailing Winds. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know. Twiceborn is usually good. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. That's a rough one, but it's a 20% discount twice more, and they come back without their white mage shape. Okay. Now your next spell is in Thaumaturgy. Whoops. And it is a nature spell, Charbolium. So this is the spell that your Heliodromi cast when they are fire 1, nature 1. And it gets them +2 fire magic, +1 nature magic, and +3 heretic. So it makes them heretical 5, which guarantees they're going to reduce the dominion by 1. It's going to last 12 turns. But for those 12 turns, you have a 90 gold, fire 3, nature 2. Do with that what you will. That's pretty good in my book. Do with that what you will. And then your last spell is Orgy. Actually, I haven't cast it, so I need to cast that. So Orgy, what it's going to do, it's going to cost you 1 Blood Slave. And I think you get this at like Blood 1. It's going to cost you 1 Blood Slave, and that 1 Blood Slave gets you 6 Maenads, and a Satyr Commander that summons more Maenads, and also increased unrest. So you probably want to do this in the aforementioned Party Jungle. Let's just set this guy to cast that real quick. And before I hit end turn, just to take a peek at this ridiculousness, that in my test game, of course, I get a Fire 3 Heliodromi. 10% rand. Because, of course, it's a test game. Oh, and here's another one. 2. So I paid 90 gold for... Like, I wish this would be every game, where I have only a handful of these... Oh, right, you can only have one of these Viets. You only have one of these guys. So these kind of suck. But, you know, they could do stuff if you pay a gem to Phoenix Power. But these, like, this is what you want. This is what you wish for. All of these guys, just 90 gold, fire 2, some 1 fire 3. This is what you hope for. In practice, you're probably going to get a lot of these guys, and these guys suck. In practice. But there's a chance that you just get really lucky and get this, and these are good. They can do stuff. Anyways, we have this guy casting Orgy. I don't think there's anything else here to talk about. Okay, we'll cast Orgy, and we'll get our 6 Maenads, and we'll get this Satyr. Let me just move. And we'll get this Satyr, who can seduce. Now remember, he is male, so he can only seduce females. Everything else will be an assassination, and this guy sucks. You don't want him to be in an assassination battle. He's got Berserker 3, which is okay, but he's otherwise completely naked and has nothing. And again, he causes unrests. And the Maenads can no longer be used. There's a patch that nerfed them, so that you cannot patrol with Maenads. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. But otherwise, you can sit there and do summon allies. And when you do summon allies, you get 1 Maenad. Woo! It doesn't sound like much, but this spell costs you 1 Blood Slave. Just 1. And again, I tend to put these guys in the same province that I quote as Party Jungle. So Party Jungle, regardless, is going to have a lot of unrest and a lot of revelers that are giving a supply bonus. 2 Maenads. Ooh. And we're going to have a lot of revelers that are giving a supply bonus. And again, magic 3, and we have a guy that costs me 50. He's giving me 6 research. So at least my strategy with this was I set up a Party Jungle where I have all the revelers there researching, especially the useless ones that are nature 1. Some of them have a singular nature gem to cast Swarm to ward off invaders and bad things. Maybe I can also set them on retreat, but I don't know if you want to do that, because then you get attacked and they all run off, cause unrest everywhere, and then you gotta run them back. It's iffy. And don't worry about Heretic only affects the province they are in. It doesn't spread. So it just makes it 0, makes your dominion 0 in that one province, and obviously your temple checks are going to be trying to fight it, and that can suck, but it is what it is. But what the turnaround here is, 1 Satyr, costs no upkeep, he's going to make you 1 Maenad per turn. If you get 100 Blood Slaves, 100 Blood Slaves, and throw 100 Blood Slaves into 100 Satyrs, you have 100 Maenads per turn. That's starting to do something. And I'm the first one to hop into any Discord and tell you Maenads suck. I hated, when I was playing Pangea, I hated having Maenads. They kept getting in the way. My entire nation is made up of stealthy, powerful units, and I have these dumb, not stealthy women running around, slowing me down and making me have to micro them out of my armies. But that's because I was Pangea. We are playing Pythium, and we have access to every spell in the game. So when can these chicks be good? When you can cast Fog Warriors, Will of the Fates, Mass Protection on them. Have them fight while Serpent's Blessing and Foul Vapors is going on. You can give them your Strength month, Strength of Giants, or whatever the Bloodlust spell is if you want. But their job is go out and die. Go eat evocations to the face. Go fatigue out the enemy. Just go get hit in places that your Comitatense don't have to get hit. So once you have, honestly, I started using them a lot when I had about 40 or 50 mainnets per turn. That started getting pretty wild. Um, moving them through your armies isn't that bad because a lot of your armies are going to have Serpent Priests, and they have the supply bonus. You're going to have cornucopias, which also gives you supply bonus. So to me, I think using this little satyr thing to translate your blood slaves, that's one blood slaves for one satyr, is really damn good. To do with it's something to do with your revelers over having Misties that are just going to sit there and research, and it's completely optional. You don't have to do this. You can just research Misties and never worry about blood hunting or summoning satyrs and making maenads. But to me, I think the benefit of getting 100 maenads per turn later on in the game that can sit there and soak hits with Will of the Fates, Fog Warriors, Mass Protection, all that crap. I think that's totally worth it. Not to mention, the other things you can do with blood. Just by the way, it happens to be blood magic. I will warn you though, I don't think getting a pretender to blood hunt for you is a good idea. I don't recommend it. This whole thing with summoning the satyr and maenads is good, but I don't think it's design your pretender around it good. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Your pretender needs to be doing other crap because at the end of the day, your nation has access to every path of magic. So what you design your pretender to have is very important in deciding, what research you do or what you are capable of as a nation. In my personal case, I don't remember the exact pretender I used in my Pythium game, but I know it was the Netter of Crafts because I wanted somebody that had high earth to forge me hammers, make me earth boots, summon troll kings, do big earth things that my mages otherwise can't. And I wanted him to have big astral to also do those big astral things. And that way I depend less on the Theurgs. I no longer need a Theurg to cast Will of Fates. I can do it with my god. At least for one army, I can do it with my god. And the other armies, yeah, okay, Theurgs. But it makes me depend on the Theurgs less, which means I have more Serpent Priests, which means I can do more things. And again, in terms of more things, it's cast Foul Vapors every fight. I understand that there will be a point that they can cast Serpent's Blessing. Cast Foul Vapors every fight anyways, because it is easier for you to cast Foul Vapors than it usually is for them to cast Serpent's Blessing. So cast it every fight. So you want a lot of Serpent Priests. I don't think there's anything else to go over the nation. Any questions? I do my best to answer comments when I can. But yeah, so leave all your questions in the comments. This is how I would play Pythium because I have played them in the past. This is what I did. I beat up 2 nations and was pretty much tied for first place in that game. I just did not have the will to continue because the will to continue meant fighting a Dominion 10 relay underwater that they've been settled in the whole lake, making my Dominion hell because obviously I have all these heretical crap running around. So fighting that relay while my crap's going insane. At the same time that I'm fighting Late Age Abyssia on turn 80 or something like that with all his demons, all his assassins, all his crap, who also has Arcane Nexus up. No, I did not have the willpower to do that. I was satisfied with beating up my neighbors, beating up Hellblessed Raga with a bunch of maenads and legionaries, and I don't know. I thought the nation was pretty darn good. I thought the nation was pretty darn good. That's how I would play it if I played it again. And I hope this helped in some way. And if you think I'm completely wrong or crazy, again, throw it in the comments. Let's talk about it. And yeah, with that, I will see you guys next time.